Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This is Azhar Iqbal, serving as a lecturer of Media and Communication Studies at SMCS, University of Management and Technology. The honorable guests, respected faculty members, and dear students, Assalamu alaikum. Today's session is linked with our subject, media writing skills. We have been discussing about the writing skills for the print media, the writing skills for advertising or the copywriting skills, writing skills for the public relations, and we also discussed writing skills for broadcast media. Now we are going to learn academic writings in mass media, or you will say writing skills for mass media research. And for this purpose, we have invited a very esteemed guest, Dr. Sadia Jamil. Dr. Sadia Jamil is a PhD from Australia, and currently he's doing postdoc from the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences from Khalifa University of Science and Technology, Abu Dhabi. She is the acting chair of Journalism Research and Education Section, IAMCR. So over to you, Dr. Sadia. Welcome to University of Management and Technology.
Thank you, Azhar. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. And I'm very grateful to you and your faculty members and for your students for having me for today's session. I think this is one of the very relevant topics that we often talk about, the academic writing skills, because I think over the past 5 years, I have been serving many editorial boards, and I have been part of the IMCR review committee. And one of the challenges that we often try to address is, most of the time, academics, researchers, they face like a great challenge for the rejection of their research papers. Now, having said that, that doesn't mean that I have never faced rejection for my research papers, but I will definitely talk about what are the reasons for rejection. But I think academic writing or poor academic writing is one of the crucial factors that leads for very initial rejection of the research paper. And it is very crucial for students, for researcher to think about it, because it does take time. Trust me, it's not just a one-day effort. It does require time and practice to have really a robust academic writing skills. So I would like to share some of the things that you would like to take mark about the do's and don'ts of academic writing that you would like to incorporate and to see where you are standing in terms of your research skills level in terms of the writing. So if you allow me to share a short slide, if I can.
Yes, you can share the slides.
So I think now everybody of you can see this PowerPoint. This is a very brief PowerPoint. It is not too much overloaded with the concepts for academic writing. So as Azhar said in the beginning of the session, that we do have different kind of writings. For example, you write for the broadcast media, for the print media, for advertising, for public relations. And every field, every specific field requires different writing skills. So many of the people, they come from journalistic background. Some people, they come from the creative industry background. They are expert of writing for newsrooms. They are expert for writing for press releases. They are expert for writing for advertising, for copywriting. But when they turn back to academia, it turns quite challenging for them, because it is something totally different. And when I say that, I really claim that academic writing is much different. Now, if you look back to a piece of a news story or a PR press release or a copyrighted script for an advertisement, you can see that most of these items, they are brief. Even if they are objective, they are brief. So they are not subjective. So I think academic writing differentiates with all of these kind of writings in terms that it is subjective versus objective. And whenever you have to face and you have to write in a subjective manner, it does demand different kind of skills. It's fine now. So the basic difference between academic writing and different other kinds of writing, for example, a news story or a PR press release or a copy edited version for an advertisement, is the difference between objectivity and subjectivity. The another key difference that we all are aware is the difference between formal and informal. Now, many of you may question like a news story is a formal piece of a story or a PR press release is something formal. But again, the jargons that you use, the syntax of the sentence, the level of the coherence in these kind of different piece of writings again differ. So the formality and informality and the tone of the language does differ. So I will begin starting with a very challenging aspect, academic writing in the digital age. And why I have emphasized academic writing in the digital age, what is happening, we all are now used to write for different kind of mediums. For example, there are online news websites, there are online blogging. Yeah, so many people, they are used to for writing for social media, for example, Twitter, Facebook. Now, if you do the analysis of all these kind of online script or text, it does have difference of writing. For example, when you write on Twitter, it's much brief. Even though if it's objective, it is brief. So it doesn't require much of the subjectivity or formality. When you write something for your Facebook post, it is something different. When you write for your WhatsApp message, it is something different. So I think one of the bad impact of digital age is it has influenced writing skills um, in a negative way as well, and in positive way, in a way that it has too much of the creative ways. Now we have hashtags, we have short terms to communicate, but the informality and objectivity of writing has affected. So given now we as an academic, we are surviving in a digital age, during the 24 hours, we go through different kinds of communication. For example, we do social media communication, we do communication through WhatsApp, we write emails, and all of these kind of textual communication, they require different kind of academic skills or writing skills. So once you go back and you sit and you write your research paper, naturally or unnaturally, consciously or subconsciously, it does influence your writing skills for a research paper. So remember, when you sit and you write for a research paper, it is not your WhatsApp communication. It is not your communication that you do on social media or through email exchange. It is something different. Why it is different? Because you are creating a context for a research. So basically, you are translating your mind, your conceptual map into the paper. And it does have some do's and don'ts. So when you communicate digitally, either while writing a blog or an online news story or an advertisement marketing piece, digitally, you are more creative, you are more informal, you are not more concerned about the objectivity of the produced text. But remember, when you have to write a research paper, you are simply translating your brain, you are simply translating a concept into the paper, and it does have do's and don'ts. And it does have limitations in terms of the creativity. Even if you are so much inspired to be creative, even if you are so much inspired to speak up your brain, you can't. Because most of the time in the initial screening, we reject papers because they are simply not written in academic style. And trust me, it happens in routine. So even if you have done so much of effort in your data collection, even if the research has a very strong conceptual background, it is not accepted just because it is not communicated academically. So this is why I emphasize academic writing is a challenge in a digital age, because we are so much engaged in writing which is not objective, which is not formal, and hence it does influence our writing skills for a research paper. So starting with a point like what exactly you really need to avoid, that means the don'ts of for academic writing. As I just mentioned, we are more into informal conversations. We are more into informal writing just because We are into digital age. We are into too much of electronic communication where we use short terms, where we use informal language or colloquial language. We use hashtags. This is all refer to a colloquial style of writing. This is not acceptable for a research paper. So the first thing that you should limit is to limit your colloquial language or colloquial tone in your research paper. Now, one of the problems with the colloquial language is most of the time, if you are not a native speaker, the problem is people just think in their mother tongue and they try to write in English language. For example, if you have to write a research problem, maybe you are thinking in Urdu language and you just start writing in English. So the translation from your brain, that means the concept, into a written piece of paper, automatically it brings some colloquial language, because the way we think in Urdu could be definitely different the way we express in English. So I think one of the humble advice that I would give is, whenever you write something, don't think in your mother tongue. You just keep your thought process. If you're writing a piece of paper in English, your thought process must be in English. So this is how you can control the colloquial tone at the first place. Second thing is the way you communicate on social media, the way you communicate in electronic communication like SMS or WhatsApp, or informally on email. Just this is, I think, tough, but not too tough. Like whenever you sit and write your research paper, put the colloquial tone aside. Now, for example, if I have to give you example of some of the colloquial expressions, for example, hey, or gosh, OMG. Like these are some of the few examples of how we speak informally and using in a colloquial tone in our daily routine. But remember that academic writing is not about colloquialism. It's more about a formal tone that is academic. It doesn't have space, no space at all for colloquial expressions. So if you by chance during proofreading, if you come across that your syntax, your sentence, or your tone is colloquial in any way, just try to proofread it. And I think one humble suggestion is to get it proofread from the professional proofreaders if you are not expert still, or if you are a beginner of academic research papers. The second thing is about limit exaggeration. Now, you might be thinking, what is meant by exaggeration in a research paper? Now, if you look at many of the news stories, I'm sorry, I beg you pardon. If you look at the news stories in Pakistani news media, it happens in India as well. News stories, they are not at times objective and they are more exaggerated. For example, if somewhere, for example, even if you take the example of COVID-19 pandemic, if you look at the footages or news stories coming from India, regardless of the fact that it might be a reality, the suffering of the people, but again, given the news is a constructed reality, it is at times exaggerated. And that exaggeration does happen in the text of the research paper. So for example, if you have to write about a research problem or a background, you simply don't need to exaggerate. For example, let me give you an example. If you are writing a research paper on COVID-19 pandemic, and you have to write your introduction and you have to set the background, what exactly happened and what your research is all about. To set the context of the research, you don't need to exaggerate in a very colloquial manner. I would say there is no need of melodrama in your research context. So just try to be brief, objective. What is the background of your research, and then jump directly into your research problem. What exactly is the problem? And it should be precise. It should be clear. It shouldn't be exaggerated in a way that people just end up saying, hang on, I'm not interested to read that melodrama. Are you getting my point? Because that actually confuses the reader what exactly is your research context and what you are going to investigate and how it is going to fill the gap in the literature. This is, I think, these three questions that most of the reviewers, they look for in a good introduction. And if they don't find these three things, a good research context, the point of investigation, that could be a research question or research objective, and what exactly you are going to contribute, I think if they don't find, they just reject your introduction. So that could be a weak point. So just try to avoid exaggeration. I know most of the time research problems, they are quite tempting for early stage researchers. Oh my god, that is like a research problem. I'm a person who is going to solve it. So much of the master students or early stage MPhil researchers, they are quite tempted with so many societal problems or whatever they are going to investigate. They are tempted with it, and because of that temptation, they end up exaggerating the problem. Please don't exaggerate the problem. I think a brief background and a brief explanation of the problem is more than enough, because most of the time that you do in the introduction. And if it is clumsy, if it is exaggerated, trust me, at times reviewers laugh at it. So avoid colloquialism and exaggeration. Another important thing is to avoid the use of personal pronoun. Now, this is one of the very common problems that I have noticed quite often in my past 5 years experience as an editorial board member. People write research paper as if they are telling a story. I observed this, and I was interested to do that, and we need to solve this. So the use of I, we, me, my, uh, this is not something academic. So what we need to do is just use a passive voice and avoid using personal pronouns. I think if we have a good research paper.
सर प्रिपरेशन हुई वो मैंने आपको बताया था ना वो नेक्स्ट वीक चलाएगा उसमें फिर ढीला पड़ गया. All right, let me mute this guy.
Can I go ahead?
Yes, sure. Sorry for the.
Thank you. So one of the important things that we notice is to avoid personal pronouns like I, we, me, my, because you are not telling a story. So most of the time, what people do when they write a research problem or a research context, they use personal pronouns. Even in methodology, I did this, when they explain the data collection process, don't do that. Most of the time, what happens, if it is a good research paper, if it is like theoretically or conceptually sound, and if we notice that there is a use of personal pronoun, one of the major revision that we give is to remove all personal pronoun. But if the paper is not theoretically or conceptually strong, then we don't even mention that. But using personal pronoun, I think, is one of the biggest thing that we always encourage not to use. And this is like a strict don't. Use passive voice in your academic writing. And I think one of the important aspect for a don't, what I would like to say is for a research paper is, when you write a research paper, you do have a different structure. For example, introduction, your literature review, your theoretical framework or theoretical underpinning of the research. Then you have research design. Research design still have so many components like sampling and analysis, validity, etc., etc. And then your finding and discussion. So all of these sections, this is a very traditional method of writing a research paper. Now, all of these sections, they do not stand in isolation. Remember, all of these sections, they are interlinked. One of the biggest problems with academic writing that people, they simply don't know that they are not writing a research paper, rather they are weaving beads in a thread. And that is an art, trust me. For example, you start from your introduction, you write your research background, your research problem, then your research objectives, and what you're exactly contributing through your research. Then you go back to the literature review. Now, when you write literature review, again, that is like an art, because it is not just a shopping list of journal articles or the reviewed books. Remember, literature review is like something very crucial when reviewers go through. Literature review must be aligned with your research problem. It must follow the structure for points, evidence, evaluation, and link, what we call the PEEL formula. So most of the time, early stage carriers who are not very proficient with academic writing, they really don't know how to make an exact point. They don't know how to provide evidence. Evidence could be your past or recent research papers or any factual report, how to evaluate it critically, and how to link back with the core points of your research. And given they don't know how to link back points and how to evaluate it, how to link back with the research problem, they simply are not able to underline the contribution of their study. So literature review, I think most of the time I come across very, very bad literature reviews. And let me tell you my personal experience. I was not somebody who could write a very good literature review, honestly, because this used to be something that used to be a problem for me, I think 7 or 8 years back. I remember my PhD supervisor, she used to say, Sadia, you prepare a very good shopping list of literature. Trust me. So how I used to write, I remember in my early stage of PhD, he says this, she says this, blah, 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 did this. So what? And now I laugh at it, because literature review is not a shopping list of journal articles or reviewed books. It is something that requires a point, that requires an evidence, that requires critical evaluation, that requires link back. So for example, if you have reviewed 10 journal articles or 10 books in your literature review relevant to your research paper, all those um, reviewed journal articles or books must need a point. They must need a point. They need some evidence. They need some evaluation, and it needs to be linked back. What happens most of the time, I see many long literature review sections in research papers, maybe 4 or 5 pages long, and they really nicely talk about he did this, she did this, but what they have done is really meant for your research paper. So people are not simply interested to read who did what. They are not simply interested to read what others have done. What they are interested is about the point, then what exactly some people have done in that particular specified field, then what is your evaluation where your role is important, and how you are able to link back those past studies with your own research. And I think that is an art. So it's not about just reading others' work. It's all about how you critically translate all that work and your ability to critically evaluate in relation to your own research that matters. So what I would say is, don't create a shopping list of the literature, because trust me, it is one of the reasons for the rejection of the research papers, or it ends up giving you a major revision. So moving ahead to the what exactly you need to do for academic writing is, the first thing that I would emphasize is to be clear and to be precise. Precision and clarity is I think, the backbone of any good, solid research paper. So you really need to be clear. You really need to be precise uh, in your research focus. So if you're not able to communicate with clarity, and clarity has two meanings: clarity of your expression, clarity of your sentence, and then clarity of the entire paragraph, what you are trying to communicate. So for example, if you ask me, when any research paper comes to me, I read maximum the first paragraph of any research paper. You will shock to know I don't end up reading the entire paper even. And I think most of the academics do that. So in the first paragraph, if I don't get the sense what exactly uh, is the focus of the research, what exactly it is all about, I think I ultimately end up giving either a major revision or a rejection for that paper. So I think clarity and precision, because that is an art. You need to create the case of your research paper in the very first paragraph. It must speak up what exactly you are doing. For example, if you are talking about fake news during COVID-19 pandemic, and in the first paragraph, you start with the history of COVID-19 pandemic, trust me, nobody's interested. Because if, for example, if you're talking about infodemic or disinformation on social media during pandemic, your first paragraph should artistically speak about you're talking about disinformation or fake news during pandemic, and it must highlight that. Nobody would like to see the history of pandemic or what exactly happened, where it originated, blah, 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 in the first paragraph. So that clarity and that precision is the backbone of your research paper. So this is how you can do. I remember, I think last year I was asked to examine a PhD thesis from the University of Karachi, and I think I've never examined any PhD thesis back to Pakistan, but it was a PhD thesis on a game show by Fahad Mustafa. I have never watched that game show before, so I had to Google it first before examining the thesis. And I think until the middle of the thesis, until I could reach the methodology, I could not find out the exact research problem. So what's the problem with that game show? What exactly the researcher is trying to do? And I think one of the reasons why I rejected for the qualification of the PhD is that, like, even after the literature review, even after going through the introduction, I could not find why the researcher is motivated to talk about a game show. So what exactly is the problem? So if you are not clear, if you do not have a precision for your research problem, for your research objectives, even I think people would not like even to jump to your methodology, because it's simply, I think that sounds like a vague effort. So what you need to do is, in your introduction, be very clear, be very precise, and my humble advice is never write a very long introduction. Even technically, a 3-page introduction is not a nice introduction. Ideally, I think maximum 2-page or 1.5-page introduction, I think is the best introduction I would rate. And it's not just about the length of introduction. In that 1.5-page or maximum 2-page, it's your responsibility to clearly communicate research background, the research problem. Then it should be linked with your research questions. That means the rationality of the research. And then you need to justify what exactly your research stand, what is the contribution of your research. And that all requires clarity and precision. Now, that clarity and precision is also required when you communicate your theoretical framework, your methodology, and even your findings and discussion session. So precision and to be very specific is an art of a good researcher or a good academic writer. So be clear in your expressions, even within sentence, even within paragraph, and even be precise in overall research paper. And then one of the very crucial problem is the use of technical jargons or terminologies. Now, I'm not sure how it works back to Pakistan, because it's been quite long time. I'm not in touch. I've not overview any of the curriculums back to Pakistan, but technical jargons are the backbone of any good research. And those technical jargons could be theoretical. Those technical jargons could be methodological. So if you are not using them correctly, it can be a problem, because that can be a factual error. So that may land you in a problem during the review process. So using correct theoretical terminologies, methodological terminologies, technical jargons relevant to the research problem is very crucial. So make sure that you are using it effectively and you are using it correctly. Now, let me give you an example. I think one of the research paper recently I reviewed, it was about public sphere. And it was about the Habermas, how Habermas has conceptualized public sphere. And now we are having digital public sphere. I think I was laughing when I was reviewing that paper, because I think every second line, I could read the word public sphere, and digital public sphere. Now, public sphere is a theoretical concept, right? And digital public sphere is a new evolving terminology that we quite often use. Now, using any theoretical concept effectively, that means like you know really when to use it and correctly. So where to use it is an art. So for example, if you are using a theoretical concept like public sphere or gatekeeping, there are so many other theoretical concepts in mass media. You don't need to repeat it. Uh, Maybe one time, two times, three times, but you don't need to keep on repeating the same theoretical concept or technical jargon in your paper throughout the paper. It's like that you are reciting the terminology. So don't recite terminologies, use them effectively, use them where it has to be used. So don't use terminologies unnecessarily. If you have to use it correctly at the right place. For example, in methodology, let's take the example of research methodology. Now, in research methodology, we all look for how much the researcher is clear in its methodological concepts. So, for example, if you are writing about the sampling, we will look for what type of sampling you are using. So we will see whether you can elaborate or articulate your sampling method clearly, whether you are able to clearly articulate about the data collection methods or the method of analysis, the method of validity and reliability. So these things, these technical terminologies comes very quite often under review for the methodology section. So there you can demonstrate your knowledge, and there you can demonstrate how effectively and correctly you can use methodological concepts. So there it is very important. Use them correctly, use them effectively. Don't get obsessed with technical jargons and terminologies throughout the paper. And then one of the important aspect of any academic writing is it should be cited properly and correctly. Now, I think one of my biggest objection with so many research papers that people, they simply don't know how to cite. They don't know how to correctly cite. So there is one problem that people, they don't go through recent research papers, or they don't know how old your source of information or source of research should be, and how much referencing is required in any research paper. So this is one of the problems. So many people, they are not familiar with the plagiarism rules in most of the international journals, particularly for Q1 ranking journal. They go through the plagiarism check, and they do bother about it. But during the review process, even if you have not plagiarized, we do see the quality of references used, um, and how much effectively you have correctly uses the reference. Now we have two reference system, Harvard reference system, and now we have APA style 7. Now every journal, every publisher, they have their own requirement for referencing. So you have to cite accordingly. But the purpose here is, if you are a mass media researcher, I think over the time you should be very proficient with both APA and Harvard style referencing both. So for example, if your publisher requires Harvard referencing style, you should be able to do that effectively. Most of the time, publishers, they do provide a guideline for referencing, so it shouldn't be a problem. But the problem remain is, so many people, they don't realize where to cite what. Now, for example, if you are writing a research problem, so even in your research problem, you need to back up your argument, you need to back up your points through references. Either it's a research that has been done in Pakistan or internationally. Now, I remember sometime it happened with one of my research into artificial intelligence. It was, I think, the first ever paper into AI in Pakistani news media industry. So what I was asked by the reviewer to produce the research paper in the Pakistani context as well as in the global North and South perspective. And honestly, I agreed with the reviewers, because when you have to cite sources, when you have to cite references, it is not just your country of origin. It's about that you do comparative referencing between global north and global south. So I did provide references what is being done in the global north, for example, in Europe, Australia, and America, what is being done in Asia, for example, South Asia, and in Latin America and South America and Africa. So this kind of referencing, and that if it does correctly, it is the strength of your research paper. And most of the time, if you don't cite sources accurately, I think most of the reviewers, they ask, please back up your paper with latest or more recent studies. Another problem with referencing is most of the time, unconsciously, I think it happens, people write and they write as a claim. Just try to avoid claim in your sentences, because I think it's more humble way. No researcher can claim anything, even at the end, even in the conclusion. And if you are writing introduction, avoid writing claims. And if you're writing any point, if you are indicating any problem or anything, don't forget to back up it with a reference or a source. Because if you are not giving a backup of your source of information or a reference, then your point is null and void. It doesn't have any strength. So using correct resources and referencing, it requires reading. So what I encourage is, if before starting any of the research project, I think the first phase is you really need to swim into what other people have done. Never jump into data collection or never jump into writing before you exactly read what other people have done. So reading is very important for citing correct sources and for correct references. And finally, as I said earlier in the session, is about the coherence and flow. One of the biggest problems that I find while reviewing any journal, particularly a journal article, not a book chapter, is most of the researchers, they don't know how to maintain a flow, how to maintain coherence. So remember, coherence is important within paragraph, between paragraphs, and in overall research paper. So for example, if your introduction has 5 paragraphs, even in the first paragraph, you need coherence between your sentences. It must make sense. There must be a coherence and flow between paragraphs. They must be linked. You cannot jump from one point to second point without any creating the link between the two. And then your overall research paper must be in coherence and flow. And what does it mean? It means that introduction must speak and link with your literature review, and then your theoretical framework, with your methodology, and with your research and finding. Now, most of the time, I think, I don't know whether it is being taught in Pakistan for the research methods. If you are using quantitative research methods or qualitative research methods, even reviewers do ask that question, how your methods are consistent with the used theoretical framework, because not every theoretical framework support the use of quantitative methods or qualitative methods. Now, this is something very technical. In many of the Q1 ranking journals, this question is very common. I also often ask this question. So please justify how your research methodology is justifiable with your used theoretical framework. Because there are so many mass media theories, they cannot be supported with a qualitative methodology or a constructive research approach. So you have to end up using some quantitative method or something. For example, in most of the research that talks about representation or framing analysis, I think most of the advisable research method is content analysis or textual analysis, but those qualitative methods have to be justified how it goes well with your use theory. So coherence doesn't mean that you are writing well with clarity or with precision, but it does mean whatever sections you have placed in your research paper, they are in flow, they are well connected. Now, the bottom line is the entire process of academic writing does feel horrible. It might feel like a daunting process, but trust me, it is not. It is mere a matter of practice. If you ask my personal experience, I used to be a medical student. I quit medical, and when I started back to Karachi, it was mass communication degree, and then I left Pakistan and I went to Scotland. It was all media management specialization and specialization in journalism. So I have been one of those people who have never written any professional news story. I have never written any PR release except during one of my internship. I don't write advertising copyrighted content. Uh, you can say that I was born in academia and I have flourished in academia. So I think that journey is totally into academic world. But trust me, for me, even writing even a single paragraph was not easy, because if you look back to people back to medical background, they are not simply good in writing. We are not used to of writing back to medical schools. We just write back maybe formulas or maybe very briefly. We are not even trained how to handle subjective writing, right? So even if you are a journalist, even if you are a creative writer, academic writing is just a matter of do's and don'ts, and it's a matter of practice. It is not something impossible, because I'm telling you confidently based on my own experience that over the time, maybe my first research paper you could have been like very crap, but over the time, when I practiced academic writing, it was fun. So trust me, it's not horrible, it's not daunting. It's about the matter of do's and don'ts. So when you write your first paper, maybe you don't feel that good. With your second paper, you feel more confident and you say, okay, I'm getting on track. And you trust me until you reach to your fourth, fifth, sixth paper, or maybe you finish writing 10 journal articles, you are like, okay, it's still like, it's much better than before. So it's all about practice. And for all the students who are listening right now, I would encourage, please do write at least 500 words a day, every day, like you do your breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It might sound crazy, but this advice was given to me by my supervisor back to Scotland. And he used to say me, Sadia, if you would like to be a very flourished academic, just write 500 words every day in an academic tone, like you do your breakfast, your lunch, and your any other daily activity. And trust me, because if you keep on spending time writing WhatsApp messages or social media posts, if you really would like to flourish as an academic or a solid researcher, I think 500 words daily is nothing. And why I'm saying so, because once you stop writing, you become rusty. You really lose your track how to write in a coherent, precise, and clear manner for a good research paper. Now, if you ask my experience, I do these things in a routine, in a way that I don't know, I think I end up writing maybe 4,000, 5,000 words in a day, and it happens even within 2 to 4 hours. Trust me. So my average span for writing a journal article, if I am a solo writer, is maybe maximum 1 week, and I end up finish writing like 9,000, 10,000 words article. And why it happens, because I think I'm quite used to of writing every day. And it's not writing on WhatsApp messages or chatting and blah blah blah, but I think it's more of the academic work and academic drafting, not just about the research paper, but for the grants and for all other academic work. So what I suggest to all researchers is, if you are an undergrad student, or if you are a postgrad student, do make habit of writing at least 500 words daily. You can just go through like tick mark the do's and don'ts. You can get the peer review of your write-up. Now, peer review is very important. Why? Because when you pass forward your written piece, other people can see what you have already overlooked. So maybe they can come up with more critical ideas of what you are writing. And if somebody is critical of your writing or if your work, uh, please never disappoint. Because trust me, I have 10 years of research experience, and until now, I really receive feedbacks from the reviewers that are simply horrible, horrible. Trust me. Like there are times when we receive reviews from 4 reviewers at times, and those are not nice. There are times like they are nasty even. They are quite insulting, but still like to respond back to a reviewer is an art, right? You simply don't give up for your journal article or for your research paper. So remember that critical review is part of academic writing. People will come up with critical, at times it could be offending. Trust me. Like they may insult you for your writing, they may insult you for your theory, for your ability to demonstrate clearly about methodology. You really need to be thick skinned. What is the point is to pick what exactly the other person is trying to say. This is how you survive in academia, particularly internationally. So I would say that peer review is very important. Like, for example, in the college, what I would recommend is if you're writing a piece of an essay, or for example, if you're writing a small piece of research, maybe the classmates can review each other papers, or the faculty, they can peer review and they can give critical feedback. Because once you will become used to of having critical evaluation of your piece of work, I think that will be the beginning of your expertise in academic writing. Because what other people can see, sometimes you cannot see in your own written piece. So that peer review is very critical. I'm very grateful for your attention, and I will pass the floor to Azhar if the people have some questions. Is that all right, Azhar?
Thank you, Dr. Sadia, for delivering an amazing and very valuable presentation over academic writings in mass media. So before going towards the question answer session, I would like to move towards our esteemed guest of honor, Dr. Noshina Salim. She has been with us since the very first minute of the session. So friends, I would like to say a few words about her because I can never introduce her in few moments because she has a very long introduction. So Professor Dr. Noshina Salim is not only a professor, she is a professor of the professors, a teacher of the teachers, a mentor of the mentors. So Dr. Noshina Salim is currently in charge of, she is the director of School of Media and Communication Studies, School of Communication Studies, University of Punjab. So first of all, I congratulate Dr. Noshina Salim on behalf of School of Media and Communication Studies for the reshaping Institute of Communication Studies, the largest institute of Pakistan regarding communication and media studies. So Professor Dr. Noshina Salim, if you hear me, would you like to share a few words with us?
Thank you very much, Mr. Azhar. I'm very grateful. First of all, I just want to say my special gratitude and my congratulations to Ms. Sadia for such a wonderful presentation. I have never ever been experienced throughout my life. Such an amazing and very crispy, very precisely. She explained how we have to write academic writing. I appreciate first of all. And second, appreciate you and your all entire team for selecting such an important topic. And right now, the student of mass media belonging to all the institutions, either in private and public sector universities, they have several serious issues in academic writing. I am 100% agree with the way she is pointing out. The students are quite away from the reading. Reading is most important thing. And then writing as well, because they are writing the crispy and smart, and most of the time they are involved in Facebook and Twitter, and with 100 words, 15, 25 words, statements or sentences. So they are unable to even to write a proper paper in a final examination. So when I have been being a teacher, I have been experienced to evaluate their papers. So they are using the shorthand words like OMG, she is pointing out. So same way, unnecessary terminology they are using by themselves. They are not even recognized or internationally recognized terminology of the media studies, and same with the social sciences research. So that is very unfortunate. So students are quite away from the reading and writing. I'm 100% agree with Ms. Sadia. The other important points, you're absolutely right. The writing pattern is very much important. Like we should follow and adopt referencing writing style. Every day, all the international, you say every after 1 year, the new manual is introduced, APA manual 5th, 6th, 7th. So we have to be very much updated when we are writing the research paper or writing thesis. We must be updated with the new manuals writing. There are MLA, there are Chicago, there are many patterns or following when we are writing research paper and thesis. But we should follow what is the criteria of the universities for writing theses. First of all, is it APA, is it MLA, is it Chicago, it's another one. So you should be follow your university rules and regulations, first of all, in writing theses and projects. So academic writing is very serious phenomena. It's not everybody cup of tea. So our students who are just get admission in first semester in BS honors, or then they are move on to master's degree, then they are move on to the MPhil, and they think it's overnight they will be completing for their thesis in 2 months or 3 months. It's not an easy task. When I ask my students, I review their projects and ask some correction, they are looking at very strange eyes on me. Why are you highlighting such things? Ma'am, the other teacher or uske supervisor, they immediately correct the documents and forward for the further procedure of the Viva voice examination. Dr. Noshina, you are very tough. And you listen, Ms. Sadia and Azhar, that is very unfortunate. When I'm frequently called by the private organization for evaluation thesis, when I'm pointing out the same, Ms. Sadia pointing out the things she highlighted in the academic writing and a PhD thesis evaluation in Karachi University, such kind of observation I have been frequently observed, frequently evaluating when I'm evaluating PhD thesis, MPhil thesis, and master's thesis of other universities. Next time they never call me for Viva Voice examination. Never, I'm even happy on it, because my concern on my students, and I focus on my student. Please produce a original and correct and updated version of there must be some contribution in the field of communication study. Instead of reproducing the same phenomena, reproducing the same article, which has been done some other universities, some other global universities. So there is no newness in research. We must come up with the new ideas, which are not discussed anywhere. But what happened, the students are very smart. They are very they are come in one university and other university, they are stolen their ideas and they reproduce the same work. So there is duplication and replication of the work. We should avoid the duplication and replication. That is just wastage of the time, money, resources, and even your image. So we must come up with the new ideas, work on it, read different articles, theses, relevant literature is very much important. And from the first page, first line, first statement up to the last line of your thesis, there must be some smooth reading for the unknown reader. There must not be some jerks and jumps. It should be smooth reading. The idea must be clear. Just like a novel, just like a fiction story, आपको एक बांध के रखती है, आपको attach रखती है. Same way, the thesis is a very complex scientific study, but you must make it very crispy, attractive, using simple words, attractive words, instead of using like difficult grammatical language. So must be very to the point language, and your concept must be clear. Your objectives, your rationale, it should be reflecting throughout your piece of article, throughout your piece of paper. So what you want to explore, what you want to do, and what your results are in the same line of your questions and the queries you are asking in the first chapter or in the first introduction part. So it should be on the same page. All things must be aligned. So many things already Ms. Sadia beautifully and clearly pointed out. One student asking, can we use the Grammarly check? Yes, you can. Different softwares, because softwares are there. They are helping us to for facilitation, provide us some facilitation using SPSS for statistical analysis, using how to make good tables through APA perspective, but lot of practices is required. So your patience is required. It's a time-taking phenomena. Overnight, things are not managed. Overnight, things are not happen. So it takes 1 year as given for writing a good piece of writing in MPhil, 5 to 6 months for masters, and 5 years are granted for PhD thesis. But unfortunately, students consume their time in other activities, in other in their job fair, in their family fair, and they consume only 3 to 4 months for writing their final dissertation. This is a dilemma, and unfortunately, good piece of writing can never be produced. Anyway, many things are there, but I know we must give an opportunity to our students to ask some questions. Then maybe we have some ideas to guide you in proper way. Thank you very much, Mr. Azhar, giving me an opportunity to address your students, your faculty, and your guest speaker. I'm very
Thank you
grateful
very
to all
much,
of you.
ma'am. Thank you very much. You honored our program. So now coming towards the students, we have very short moments to wind up this session. So try to ask a few questions, and I'll take Shanavar Rafiq first of all. He wants to ask a question. So Dr.
Thank you so
Masheen and
much.
Dr. Sadia are here. So please, over to
Okay,
you.
sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. First of all, thank you so much, Dr. Sadia Jamil, for this wonderful lecture. My question is about reference management. As you know,
Shanavar, could you please speak aloud?
okay, that's okay. First of all, thank you so much, Dr. Sadia Jamil, for this wonderful lecture. My question is about reference management. As you know, there are so many reference managers are being used by the researchers like EndNote, Zotero, and Mendeley. According to your experience, which one is comparatively better and user friendly?
Thank you for the question. It's not the other. It's there's a distortion.
Shanavar, can you repeat your question, please?
No, I know the question. There was a distortion. Is it okay? I carry on.
Yes, yes, sure.
Okay.
Please.
So it's not the matter of user friendly because every publisher, every university, and every journal they do have their own format. For example, some the journals, some publishers, they don't ask you to put footnote, they require you to put endnote. So there is no generic formula for that. Now I can tell you Routledge, Sage, Palgrave, these are the top ranking. Can I speak now? All right. So there is no generic formula for footnote and endnote because every publisher, every university, they have their own requirements. So I can tell you current policies for Routledge, Palgrave, and Sage, they require authors for endnote, for journal articles, and even for the book chapters. So endnote is more prevailing, but it's still there are so many journals that they require you to put footnote. So there is no user-friendly system for referencing. You have to follow the publisher policy for that. It's not something that you can decide by yourself. So you need to check the policies of the journal or the publisher to whom you are planning to submit your research paper, and then just form it and use the referencing accordingly.
Well, I think he's not a student, but laptop asking her himself a question. So Dar, Mr. Dar, you want to ask some question? Okay, the next one, Mohibul Hassan.
Thank you very much, Azhar Saab. Thank you very much, Dr. Saiba. It was quite wonderful lecture. We learned a lot from it. I have a question that may sound like a stupid question to you, because I'm going to challenge the very idea that you advocated. So the question is that why does academic writing has to be in the style that you have advocated, especially when we know that millennials, they are already reaching to the positions where they would be reviewing this stuff, and generation Z is probably on their way to reach to those positions where they would be reviewing these research papers. And these two generations have their own mindset. Keeping in mind that I come from a professional background, and I have started using emojis in my professional emails to the customers who are paying probably $1 million a year to us. So it has become a norm. And when I send an emoji to a customer in a very professional email, they don't get bothered by that. So coming back to academic side, do you think that to grab attention in that very first paragraph that you said that's the most important, which will grab your attention, wouldn't it be a wise thing to just add some of that writing, casual writing style to grab your attention?
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you for your question. First of all, let me clarify. I'm not advocating any style. That is the requirement. If you would like to write in your own style, you have all the freedom and liberty to put forward the way you would like to write. There must be some reviewers who would be coming back with their feedback. So it's not me who is educating any particular writing style. It's academia, it's international academia. We all follow that procedure. So if you would like to put emojis, it's totally up to you. You go, you submit, and then you receive the feedback. Definitely none of my business, or I'm not educating any writing style. It's a very blunt answer to your question, right? Uh, of course, if I receive a paper with emojis in the first paragraph, definitely I would not like to go through the rest of the paper, and I will say thank you and revert back to the author, because this is exactly the way. Let me give you an example. For example, when you wake up in the morning and you do toothbrush, do you do toothbrush from the head side or the tail side?
I agree with you, and don't get me wrong. I was just
No,
playing
no,
devil's advocate.
no,
Yeah.
I'm not. And similarly, let me give you an example. For example, if you are passing on a street, you are talking to any of your friends, maybe you are enjoying pan on a street of Pakistan and you are talking in some of the colloquial language, definitely that's an informal conversation. But do you go back in your office and do you speak to your boss in the same language the way you speak to your friend at a pan shop? That is my question. If you do that, again, it's your liberty, it's your freedom, but definitely that's not the protocol of that place. So there is protocol for everything. There is a conduct for everything. And that is what we call the conduct or protocol of academic writing. Similarly, the way you sit back in your couch, the way you sit back in your home, do you sit back in the office room exactly in the same way? Like, can you yawn in front of your boss? Can you sit back in the same casual manner, maybe in a conference hall? Or okay, I understand this is quite unusual to hear back in Pakistan, because even Pakistan is a country where protocols are not followed even in parliament, which does have a protocol. So talking about, thinking about, practicing about a protocol is something unusual back to Pakistan. I beg all of you pardon for that. But trust me, I'm not educating anything. I'm talking about a protocol that I follow. If somebody is not interested to follow, it's their choice. It's a matter of choice, you know.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And yes, sorry about that. If this question wasn't
Yeah.
what you were expecting, I was just playing devil's advocate. Thank you very much.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
We just have 2 or 3 more questions because we have very short moments. We have to wind up it, until 3:15. But let me go towards another question. Ms. Nurul and Nasser wants to ask a question. She's a senior faculty member in School of Media and Communication Studies. Ms. Noor, please. Ms. Noor, your mic is muted, please.
I'm so sorry about that. First of all, I would like to say thank you to Azhar Saab and to all the esteemed guests, Dr. Noshina, and it was a pleasure listening to you, ma'am, as always, and Dr. Sadia. The way you were telling about the research things, even my students are responding. So I just wanted to say thank you. But I still want to point out one thing, as you said, academic standards and protocols need to be followed. So there should be much more training given to the students and to the faculty as well regarding the international protocols, because at times we lack in this thing, and that really matters a lot. So we would like to hear more from your side. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the question. Regarding training, I do agree that training should be given to
thank you, Ms. Noor. Should we move toward next question?
Ms. Sadia was saying something.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I agree with the point that training should be given, but definitely that's a responsibility of your own university to develop training programs and to keep researchers and keep faculty updated with what is happening in research protocols. So it's a responsibility of the university to give training and to develop curriculum accordingly. So I hope that institutions back to Pakistan, they do look into all these issues for following academic protocol. I hope so.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Who is the next one? Let me find. MPhil side. Okay, Momin Ilahi wants to ask a question. Momin, please.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am Sadia, you told us about an experience of yours where you said you weren't able to find the content related to the topic while reviewing a particular research paper. In contrast to Ma'am Noshina's comment, where she said that the writing should be in the form of a novel or a storytelling, kindly tell us how to keep the balance among those. Because we have read multiple times from our teachers, and we have listened from many teachers and researchers as well, कि आपकी जो प्रोफेशनल राइटिंग है वो टू द पॉइंट और एक पर्टिकुलर वे के अंदर होनी चाहिए, उसको जो है ना नॉवल राइटिंग या उसको स्टोरी टेलिंग से डिफरेंट होना चाहिए. दिस इज द फर्स्ट टाइम आई हर्ड कि इसको रिसर्च पेपर के अंदर जो है ना आपने नॉवल राइटिंग या स्टोरी टेलिंग का स्टाइल यूज करना है. तो काइंडली मुझे बताइएगा कि इसको किस तरह फिर बैलेंस किया जाएगा उस साइड के ऊपर हम इसको लेके जाते हैं.
Before Ms. Sadia answer this question, I just want to clear you, my dear. You're absolutely right. It's not the way I'm talking about it should be like novel writing or fiction writing. I'm the way catching the attraction of the reader. In that perspective, I'm talking about. Otherwise, writing for a thesis, project, or research paper, it's very much a serious writing. And our concept and objective must be clear, starting from the first statement up to the last line of the project or thesis whatsoever. So I am on the same page what Dr. Sadia is talking about. I am not talking about just to make the writing very crispy, very attractive, precisely using good words, using appropriate language, using good grammar, and it should be a little bit reader friendly. That's why my concern. Thank you. Yes, over to Ms. Sadia.
Thank you, Dr. Noshina. I think I can clarify your point. I think the student has misunderstood your point. You didn't mean that it should be a novel. Rather, it meant that it should be interesting to the reader. Like people just don't throw the paper away. So that doesn't mean that you are writing a novel or you are writing a piece of a story. That means that you keep the interest of the reviewer or reader. Of course, a research paper doesn't mean to be a novel or a piece of a story. The point of using the word, it should be as interesting as you are reading a novel. So that means you keep the reader intact with interest. And how you can keep the reader interest with the clarity, with the precision of your research problem, with the precision of your research findings. This is how you can keep the interest. So I think Dr. Noshina didn't mean that it should be a novel. No, I think she gave an example for the interest of a research paper, that it should be as interesting as like a novel. So for example, if I am a reviewer, remember I said that if I don't get the clarity, if I don't get the precision, I simply lose my interest. I don't feel like to even go through the findings. So I think that she meant from her point.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sadia. I'm very sorry to the participants who want to ask some questions because we have to wind up. The meeting will automatically be disconnected after 3:30. So that's why we have to move to conclude this session. So I would request my senior faculty member, Umar Faruqi, who would like to conclude this session. So Umar Saab, please.
Well, thank you, Azir sir, for asking me for the concluding this wonderful session. Well, I certainly would like to thanks to our both top researchers we have in Pakistan. Thank you very much, Dr. Nashina, for being with us. Most of us who are working in School of Media and Communication Studies are a product of Institute of Communication Studies. So I take it as a pride that I am being your student as well back in 2007. Uh, it's great to host you here at the platform of School of Media and Communication Studies. And secondly, I would like to thanks to Dr. Sadia for taking out some time for our research scholars, for our students, and for speaking about this very important topic. I happen to see your intellectual post through Facebook. I've been connected with you over the Facebook, but this is the very first time that I got a chance to listen you in person. And without any exaggeration, you talk a lot about intellect. So thank you for sharing the platform on the behalf of School of Media and Communication Studies. I certainly would like to extend my thanks to you for taking your personal time, and thanks to Dr. Nashina Salim as well for being with us.
Thank you very much, Umar Faruqi Saab. Thank you very much, all the participants who spared their precious moments for this session. And inshallah, we will ask Dr. Sadia and Dr. Nashina Salim once again to join us. And I hope so. Any inconvenience is regretted regarding this session. So thank you very much, Dr. Sadia Jamil.
Thank you, Azhar. Thank you, Umar. Thank you, Dr. Noshina. I think I would like to mention that I met Dr. Noshina first ever time in Germany. Noshina, I think I met you in Bonn in 2013. I think you were there.
Yes, sir. It was my first trip to Germany. Amazing. Where I met you in.
It was, I think it was a Deutsche Welle event, and I think
Deutsche Welle event. Exactly.
Yeah, I saw you there.
So your PhD from Germany or some other country? It's from Scotland.
No. I had come. I did my post graduation in Scotland and PhD in Australia. I had come to attend the Deutsche Welle event there, so I saw you there.
Thank you very much. It's a long time ago. Yeah,
long
very nice to meet you. So it will be a very good platform, and thank you to Mr. Azhar, Mr. Faruqi, and all other fellows, because he provided a good opportunity to meet such a nice fellow. And I will love to add your name in my foreign evaluation list. If you are willing to, I will.
Thank you. Thank you.
I share your CV with me. I will add your name in my external evaluation list.
Thank you, Noshina. Thank you.
Thank you. So as a
Thank
Mr.
you,
Azhar,
everybody.
I request you, please share her phone number, mobile number, and contact number, and email as well.
Yes, sure.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, listen, giving me your time and listen me. I have some other commitments, but my students and my colleagues, and especially Mr. Azhar, is